Today's daf is daf Chav Ches. Let me just double check that. I have here the list of daf Yomi. Yeah, today is Chav Ches. Now this has to do with the mitzvah of being Mekadesh the Kohanim, the Kidashto. And the Gemara in Masechet Gittin daf Nun Tesam and Beis establishes that the Kohen should get the first aliyah, and that's being Mekadesh the Kohen. Now we're talking about Birchas HaMazon. Now with regard to Birchas HaMazon, we have a mitzvah of Zimun, and they would honor someone to be the Mizamen. In those days, that Mizamen would recite Birchas HaMazon for the entire group. And Rabbi Preda takes pride in the fact that he would always be Machabe the Kohen. So a Kohen would be the Mizamen. He didn't take the covet for himself. So here we're talking about Zrol L'Chayayim V'Keva. We are Matnas Kulun, and technically it's Chulun, it's not Teva. Meaning even before those matanos were separated, you're allowed to eat the meat of the animal. But Rabbi Preda was machmer on himself, and he treated it as if it were teva. The Omer Rabbi Yitzchak, Omer Rabbi Yochanan, also lechel b'beimish lo hurma matnoseh. This statement of Rabbi Yitzchak is really not Meikar Din, is not the halacha. That before you separate the Zrol L'Chayayim V'Keva for the Kohen, it's Teva. That's not true. Less Hilchus HaKavasa. We don't paskin like this statement of Rabbi Yitzchak. And therefore, Rabbi Preda was only proud of going meticulously beyond the letter of the law by not eating from the meat before the afrosh. It says in the note here, the priestly gifts, meaning Zrol L'Chayayim V'Keva, from an animal are not sacred. And therefore you're allowed to eat even before the afrosha. Rabbi Preda went beyond the demands of halacha, refusing to eat meat from an animal whose priestly gifts had not been separated. What's going on here? Is this something that's commendable? Rabbi Yochanan called Talmud Chacham shemavarech lefanav afilu kohen gadol ha'ma'aretz. Also, Talmud Chacham chayiv misa. A Talmud Chacham has to be makpid on kavod HaTorah. And he's the one who should recite the Zimun, not any Kohen and not even the Kohen Gadol. And a Talmud Chacham who allows the Kohen Gadol to bench, right, to be the Mizamen, is Chayiv Misa. Again, even though there's a mitzvah, as we saw before, to be Machabe the Kohenim, the Kitachto, but that doesn't apply in the presence of a Talmud Chacham. And the mitzvah of Vadarta Pnei Zaken is Doraisa, requiring honor generally reserved for Kohen to be accorded to a Torah scholar. In a case where these two obligations are at conflict, as a tug of war, then the mitzvah of honoring a Talmud Chacham trumps the mitzvah of honoring a Kohen. And therefore, Rabbi Preda, as a Talmud Chacham, is not allowed to decline the honor that's due to him. Because again, he represents the kavod HaTorah. It's not his personal pride. Shenemar, from whence do we derive this conclusion of Pasuk in Mishlei? Kol misanai avu maves. All those who hate the Torah love death. Al tikri misanai, don't read it Misanai, that's the way we should read it, but we're going to darshan Elamasniyai. Masnia means those that cause others to hate me. By deferring to the unlearned Kohen, the Torah scholar appears lowly in the eyes of others, causing others to consider Torah unworthy of honor. He is deserving of death by the hands of heaven. I don't know if you ever heard of the Pachat Yitzchak or Yitzchak Hutner. That was his thing. Covenant Torah. You had to walk out backwards. And if you walked out, turning your back, he would call you back in. And again, you'd have to walk out backwards. Hikar Iu B'Shavan. Rabbi Preda was talking about a case where there was another Talmud Chacham at the time, Birkas HaMazon. He was a Kohen. So they were both equal. And therefore, he himself could have taken the honor because he was equal in Torah. And the Mefarshim say here that he was even superior by some slight. Oh, it doesn't mean that the Kohen was actually Rabbi Preda's equal, because then he would be obligated to be Mechabe the Kohen, but rather the Kohen was also a Talmud Chacham. So this Kohen has two pluses. He's a Kohen and he's a Talmud Chacham. Rabbi Preda could have taken the honor himself because he was a greater Talmud Chacham. He deferred to the Kohen, and he was Mekayim the mitzvah d'oraisa be Mechabe the Kohen, and that's very commendable. Shalu Talmid of Rabbi Nechuni ben Hakana b'Meir after Yomim Amar Lohem Miyomai Lonis Kabadati Beklon Chaveri. I never got honor because my competitor suffered shame. Usually if your competitor was embarrassed, you're very happy about that. But no, he didn't have to derive any benefit from it. Never was I cursed by any of my friends. I would give up my money for the sake of helping others. So the Gemara explains, so this kabadati beklon chaveri kiha, like the story of Rav Huna, dore mora akatfe. Rav Huna was carrying a spade on his shoulders. Also, Rav Chana Bar Chaniloi B'Kadori Mineh. So it seems that Rav Chana wanted to carry the spade to spare Rav Huna the embarrassment of having to carry the spade. Amalei Rav Huna said to him, "Ira gilas de doris b'masich." Dori. If you are noeg as a general practice to carry such utensils like a spade publicly in your local area, then I'll allow you to carry my spade. But if it's demeaning for you to carry a spade, then is yakure ano bezilusa didach? Should I honor myself through your degradation? Lo nichli, that's not something that I can be comfortable with. Later on, we're going to see a whole story about a person who was carrying one of the great Amoraim, I think it was Reish Lakish, if I remember correctly, on his shoulders. And Reish Lakish asked him, "Do you know Chumash?" He said, "Yes." "Do you know Mishnah?" He says, "Yes." "Do you know how many stories of Mishnah?" Until finally figured out the guy who's carrying him is quite a scholar in his own right. He said, "Put me down." Lo ol sal mitasi kil as chaveri ki had Rav Zutra ki avisolik lepuri. When he went to sleep, Omar, he declared, "Shari leila cholman ditzaron." I forgive anyone who aggravated us. This you'll see also in the Tefillah Zaka from Danzig, that we recite before Kol Nidre, for those who have that custom, where he says, "I'm mofil everyone, so no one should suffer and be punished because of me." I mean, that's a high madrig. And that you can imagine why Rav Chuni ben Hakana was Zochet Harichas Yom. And by the way, it doesn't mean that he forgave any financial obligations that this person might have owed him. Uvatron b'mamoni oisi. I was very liberal with my money. Di Omar Mar Eov vatron b'mamonehan. Eov was willing to give up his money left, right, and center. And even when he went to a shopkeeper to buy something, he would add some extra money in order for the shopkeeper to get some extra profits. And I know my Rebbe Rav Soloveitchik was also very much a vatron b'mamona. I remember he came to be Masadik Kedushin at my wedding, and my father gave him 2 checks. They were pretty substantial. Again, in today's time, that's not a lot of money, but in those days, it was a lot of money. One check was on Maimonides, and the other check was for Rav Soloveitchik, and both checks were cashed on Maimonides. You know, the Rav didn't want to take anything for himself. I was once on a bus from Boston to New York. I met 2 Lakewood guys. It was during Bein Hazmanim. They came to raise money in Boston for the Yeshiva of Lakewood on their voluntary basis. I asked them if they got a decent check in Boston. Very bad. The only decent check they got was from Rabbi Soloveitchik for Lakewood Yeshiva. Then there's stories about how he gave money to Nituri Karta. I mean, he just Shol Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Nechunya Agadol. Now, until now, we've always seen stories where the Talmidim asked their Rebbe, what were your great merits? What could we want to emulate you? But Rabbi Akiva is a young man at this time in his life, and he's not a Talmid of Rabbi Nechunya Agadol. And he comes to him and he says to him, you know, how did you live such a long life? So the entourage of Rabbi Nechunya, they didn't know who Rabbi Akiva was. They didn't recognize him. So they thought he was, he was saying, begrudgingly, had the master get longevity, as if to say, in a disrespectful way. Asu Gavze, his entourage came to Kamachtu. They started hitting Rabbi Akiva for asking such a question. Chutzpah. Solik Yosef Aresha the Dikla. Rabbi Akiva must have been a fast runner. He got to the date palm and he climbed up on the date palm so that these guys, these mafiosos wouldn't beat him up. Amalei, Rabbi Akiva said to Rabbi Nechunya as he's up on top of the palm tree, Rebbe, im nemar keves, lama nemar echad. Right? The post says keves echad, but keves is in the singular. Why did Torah add the redundant word echad? Now Rabbi Nechunya realizes who this guy is. He's someone who knows what he's talking about. He's an erudite scholar. Is Surmi Rabbananu Shavkua, let him go. Amalei. So Nechunya said to Rabbi Akiva, Echad miyuchad shebe'edro. Here's the answer to your question. Keves echad means it has to be miyuchad be'edro. It's an outstanding, beautiful lamb, the best in your entire flock. That's what you should bring on the Mizbeach. Amalei. So Nechunya now responds to Rabbi Akiva's question about Arichas Yomi. Yomai lo kibalti matanos. It says, Soni matanos yichi, I didn't want to get gifts from anyone. Lo amadati al midosai. I never insisted in taking revenge or in any way against somebody who may have insulted me or distressed me. Lo uvachon b'mamoni isa, I was very magnanimous with my money. Lo kibalti matanos ki had Rabbi Lazar. When they used to send him gifts from Bein Nesiyah, the household of the Nasi, or the prince, Rabbi Lazar would not accept them. He refused and he sent the money back. When they invited him to a banquet, Lo Avi Ozli would not go. Omar Lahu, he would say to them, Lo nicha lechu the echya, you don't want me to live a long life? Tsiv soni matanos yichya. Rabbi Zera ki havi mishadra le mi bein nesiyah, lo havi shakil, ki havi mazamni le, vi ozil, Omar isyakure, de misyakir bi. So Rabbi Zera, he also was sent gifts from the Beis HaNasi, and he wouldn't agreed to accept them. But he would go to a banquet because he felt that by showing up at the banquet, he was giving them cover. Like I remember when I was a youngster, I learned in a yeshiva called Karen B'Yav. You heard of it? And the Rosh Yeshiva was Rav Goldberg. And I remember a few years after I left yeshiva, my wife and I hosted a Sheva Brachos in our house. And I remember what a great covet it was that Rav Goldberg, the Rosh Yeshiva, showed up at the Sheva Brachos. This is a midah keneged midah. That if you don't take revenge against someone and you don't exact retribution against someone who distressed you, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not exact retribution against you for your sins. Shenemar nosei avon v'over pesha. He forgives transgression and passes over iniquity. Lemi nosei avon, to whom does he forgive? Lemisha over al pesha, who he passes over iniquity of those who distressed him. Shol Rebbe, Es Rabbi Shimon Karchaba Meherachta Yomi. Amalo Katzta B'chayat. You're asking me why I live so long. What, are you sick of me? You don't begrudge me? You want me to die? Amalo, so Rebbe responded, Rebbe Tori V'luman Yitzhar. I want to emulate you and learn from you what practices you implemented in order to reach this level of arichas yomim. Maybe I can emulate you in certain midos. I never gazed at the face of a wicked person. The Omer Rabbi Yochanan. We're not allowed to look at the face of a wicked person. Shenemar, we derive this from a pasuk in Malachim in Yoshaphat, Melech Yehuda, and Yehoram, who is the son of King Achav of Israel. Lule pnei Yoshaphat Melech Yehuda ninose im abit elecha v'yemereka. Were it not that I esteem the presence of Yoshaphat, king of Yehuda, would I gaze at you? So there was a critical part of the campaign to fight against Moab. And Yoshaphat, Melech Yehuda, and Achav, Melech Yisrael, joined forces to fight against Moab. And during that campaign, Yoshaphat sought the counsel of a Navi. He was told that Elisha was nearby. When Yoshaphat and the idolatrous Yehoram appeared before him, Elisha uttered the statement cited by our Gemara, also li'adon listakel, excellim tmus adam rosh. Rabbi Elazar Amar, ein of chaos. That gazing at a wicked person could actually diminish your eyesight. Yitzchak became blind at the end of his life. And why? Mishum distakel b'Esav harash. He looked at and gazed at the face and the eyes of Esav the Rosh. So Gemara says, "V'garmole." Is it really true that gazing at Esav is what caused him to lose eyesight? V'Omer Rav Yitzchak liolam al tikilas hejod kala beinecha sharei Avimelech kilel es Sarah v'niskayim v'zara shenemar hinei hu loch ksus einayim. Avimelech made a statement to Sarah regarding a gift of 1,000 silver pieces that he gave to Avram. Behold, it is for you a garment of honor. Al tikri ksus ella ksias einayim. Don't read it as ksus, which means a garment, but rather read it as ksias. Ksias is a covering of the eyes. Sarah had deceived him by posing as Avram's sister. Avimelech cursed her that her eyes become covered or dimmed That curse was fulfilled in Yitzchak. We see that what caused Yitzchak's poor eyesight, not it was that he was looking at Esav HaRasha, but rather it was the curse of Avimelech. And more answers Hava Ha Garmule, both A plus B, both factors contributed to the blindness of Yitzchak. And Rava Amar Mehacha, we derive from here Se'es Pnei Rachel Lo. To regard the face of a wicked person is not a good thing. That's a pasuk also in Mishnah.